I've noticed that sometimes solutions come from somewhat unexpected places, and the other thing that I've noticed that when they do come, there is still underneath, there is still some kind of a structure. So what I'm trying to say, and perhaps I should probably illustrate it to better explain myself. So every now and then I would use some kind of alphas to create a organic shape, and the alphas, they don't necessarily have to do much with organic nature. It can be anything. It can be rocks, it can be just a photograph of something, right? In this case, I am using an alpha that is based on a life form, right? This is a tree with some branches being cut away, or just cut off, right? Those white bits, this is the tree bark, right? So if I'm going to put it this way, and if I'm going to rotate the cylinder that way, we do recognize the structure of a tree, right? This is tree bark, this is where a branch was. But if we use it differently, if we use it inversed, and not just in the direction, but in the kind of depth, right? So if we do it this way, and we position a few of them somewhat randomly, but not really, because I am positioning it somewhat in the place that I do like. So if we put it this way, all of a sudden, this doesn't really read like a tree, right? This reads more nastier, and this is actually how I use this precise alpha. At one point I was using it to make some nasty looking worm-like creatures, right? This does look like skin, some kind of sicklish skin with some dents inside, right? And after this was done, we can come in here and using standard tools, by standard I mean without any alphas, right? We can do some additional work, some variations, right? We can cut things in here, we can add more forms in here, right? And clean things up, perhaps, maybe intensify other things. Basically, we now all of a sudden we have a very good foundation, we have a very solid base. But the beauty of that, it's not chaotic. There isn't anything about it that is just kind of random chaos. We do still get to see some structure in here, right? And when we get to see the structure, we can do something on top of that, right? We can refine the structure, or maybe we can kind of bring it out from all the noise that we do get to see additionally. And so there are some situations where this kind of mindset does help. So an example would be perhaps this. So this is something that I needed to do for a project, and the thing here was that before all of this detail, there was just kind of noise, right? There was just a chaos, and because of that, I didn't really know how to approach this. I didn't know how to make organic shapes that would be turned into a tileable alpha that can be spread out onto assets. So what I did here instead of using an alpha, I've used something that I'm familiar with, and in this the thing that I'm familiar with, I guess, is anatomy, is the kind of human form, right? Muscles and all of that. And so that immediately applied a layer of order into those things. So this is going to be very simplified. Obviously, this is still stylized, right? We can't really see much of anything here unless I explain what exactly is shown here, right? So for example, here, this shape, and like I said, everything here was just chaotic. There was nothing like this on this piece. It was just random stuff. So this is a hand. So this would be one knuckle, this would be another knuckle, this is the tendon, this is another knuckle, right? And if we continue, the arm would be somewhere here, and this is one of the fingers kind of shooting out, and this is the joint, right, of the finger. So without that, there's just looks like a random shape. So another example would be this particular element. So this is the head, this is the spine, right? This is somewhat of a shoulder, and this is the hand going behind the hand, right? And this is the back. This is another shoulder perhaps, and this goes inwards. This is some kind of a combination of a arm, right? This is the shoulder, this would be the bicep, this is kind of where the crease is, the elbow crease is, this perhaps would be the elbow, and this is another thing. So basically what I'm trying to say is that here, by understanding by knowing a subject, I was able to create some kind of a structure, right? I was able to create some kind of organic shapes that don't look like chaos, because at least to me it doesn't look like chaos, right? There is some structure. It's very basic, it's very simple, but it's not like we are just completely lost here. That there are some things that are interesting, and there are things that just are kind of clean, and that's perhaps another thing about it is that knowing that I'm using a particular subject, in which case the kind of human body, it just implies that there won't be any noise, right? Because the human body is very clean and very elegant. So here, the way it was done, the way I've done this this kind of thing here is all clean. And if we use the alpha, not the alpha, excuse me, but if we use the material that I've explained earlier, right, we can see just the flow of things. And using this material, we can now continue with creating even more shapes. So, for example, here, perhaps this is the shoulder, right? This is the elbow. This is the bicep. This is the elbow crease, right? This is the forearm. Running this way, and maybe we can come with a standard brush and we can intensify some things, right? Then perhaps with the damp standard we can refine them and almost like draw shapes, right? If you enjoy this content or find it useful, please consider supporting me by buying me a cup of coffee via the link in the description. And so instead of this just being random stuff that we see, it's actually now all, well, it doesn't really necessarily make sense, but we recognize those things, right? We recognize the shapes, we recognize the forms, even though it doesn't really make in total, it doesn't really make for a limb, it doesn't make for a human body, it doesn't make for any of those things. But because there are some elements of that present, the picture is somewhat elegant and somewhat pleasing to the eye, right? And again, with this material, it's just so much easier to see things, right? So this is, if that was the spine, we can do even those kind of smaller details. So before, this was a situation where I didn't really know where to begin, right? Like this is just not this, but before all this detail, there was just chaos. I keep repeating this word, but it was chaos, right? And because of that, there's no way to do anything, right? Just like, how do you begin making some kind of order from something that doesn't really have any even indication that there is an order? But once we apply a mindset, right, once we apply some kind of a subject, all of a sudden we get to create things, right? And so if this was the spine, now I can create those kind of details, and it doesn't have to be a spine 100%, right? But I am just inventing the shapes based on something that I know, based on something that has the order, right? So I can, instead of maybe making the spine, now I can create some different shapes, right? So I can break it in some way, but again, not in some random not in some random way, not in a kind of chaotic way, but just continuing with everything in here. So this was, I think this was, to me, was a leg upside down. So that would be the back of the knee, that would be the heel, right, at the calf, that would be the upper part of the leg. So that's why I've made this crease in here, and yeah, and I was able to create something. But it's just a fun exercise as well, right? To kind of get to make certain things out of nothing by applying something that we do know. Just when I was recording this, I've realized that I've seen something like that already, and this was again from done by this was done once again by Carlos Huente, and so this is more disturbing of his work, right? So clearly, but the things in here, they, again, as I said in my example, they do have a structure, right? Even though there are just a lot of detail. So this is the leg, right? This is the buttocks, this is the upper leg, this is the calf, this is the foot. So there are some forms inside of the forms that we don't really see, right? That we don't really see any kind of separations and situations on our lower legs, right? But because of the subject matter, because everything here is kind of organic, he was able to create all of this variation without making it look random, right? Without making it look out of place. Everything here just fits, everything here just connects, even though the shapes are completely made up. Even this thing, right, with the head is supposed to be, it's not a head, it's just some kind of a blobby, fleshy sphere, right? And the same thing here, this is just more abstract, right? The forms are just turning into each other, right? Everything is just melting, blending, and here it's just all skewed, and here it's not even, you can't even almost recognize what is happening here. But that's basically the same idea, right? Everything here still fits, still matches, because it's all based on a specific subject. Same goes for the tentacles. I don't necessarily know the structure of the tentacle, but it does feel like this can work, right? This kind of situation, this kind of separation of some kind of muscles, or maybe even bones. Well, not bones necessarily, but there's something about it that just fits, right? That makes it look that it can be real, and it's definitely organic in nature. And the same thing continues in here, right? So some really disturbing things going on in here, but they all have some kind of a theme behind them, right? Everything here just doesn't feel like it was just painted with the eyes closed, right? There was a thought process behind it, almost like a thought process. It's almost like there was just an intention that to make things based on human form, based on anatomy, and then the mind just grabs some smaller details, and out of that creates something bigger, again restricted by the subject matter. And this example I just found out at the end when I showed, kind of wanted to demonstrate this alpha, right? So this detail, that what I've tried to show here reminded me of that, right? This kind of the holes, and then the fatty muscular tissue on top of that. So that can be, after we use the alpha, exactly that can be done here, right? Next, just creating those kind of shapes, right? Just something based on what we know, what we can recognize. So those are going to be just muscles, whatever the muscle is, like biceps, triceps, doesn't really matter. It's just that it's locked within that mindset. It's locked within that subject.